All right. Ladies and gentlemen, listeners of this podcast, thank you for being here today. We have a very special guest, Miss Greta Fitz. Thank you so much for being here.
Oh my gosh, Jaclyn, thank you for having me. This is such an honor.
I'm so glad that we got to connect a couple of months ago. You are luminary. She is the founder of Ascension, which is this incredible wellness fragrance company that I'm pretty sure is going to expand into other areas. But what you have done is so brilliant, combining intention, clean fragrance, and this sense of self-care and self-love in a bottle.
Yeah.
I mean, oh my gosh. Okay. So I have plenty
Right?
of questions for you. Yes. Can you give us a little background story on why you created Ascension Beauty Co?
Oh, I'd love to. So I grew up in the beauty industry. I worked for the past, I think, over 2 decades, right? So over 20 years, I worked at L'Oreal, Coty, Shiseido, and I've basically seen the ins and outs of product development, for designer brands, marketing the designer brands, lifestyle brands. And it really was such a privilege and a blessing to be there because it just showed me what my passion was. And I saw how people just, gravitated and transformed with the use of beauty products, right? And then a few years back, I worked at a company that specialized in clean beauty products. And that was another eye opener of everything that should and should not go into products, yeah. And just, why are we always having, allergic reactions to things? And why do we have headaches when we smell fragrances? And, so that just didn't sit right with me. And that shaped my values into who I am today. I created a brand called Clean Reserve a few years ago with Sephora, which was incredible. And it showed that people had this palette for learning more about clean beauty. And that was back in 2016.
100%.
Right?
And I have some Clean Reserve fragrance that I love. It is so beautiful. Yeah.
It's such a beautiful brand. I'm so proud to be part of it. And the team's amazing. And when I was going through all of this, the other aspect of it is that when you talk about fragrances, and the majority of my career has been in fragrance, everyone just talks about memories, right? Like memories of fresh cut grass, like it throws you back to your childhood. Or for me, like my happy place is the beach. So when I smell driftwood or I smell salty air, like ozonic, suntan lotion, it throws me back to summers at the beach and I'm just so happy, right? But no one's really talking about, well, how did that happen? How did you form that memory and scent connection, right?
And it's so powerful.
It's so powerful, and it's based on science. So scent is our strongest sense that ties memory and emotion, right? Because it bypasses all the different parts of the brain and goes straight to the amygdala and the hippocampus, and it forms a memory, right? So regardless of good, bad, or indifferent, for example, when I was pregnant with my second child, the smell of licorice I couldn't handle for whatever reason. I used to love licorice, right? Yeah. Now I smell licorice, I'm like, oh no thanks, because morning sickness and all that. No, thank you.
Worst.
Right? Yeah. It's the worst, right?
Yeah.
Right. So as I was going through this whole discovery, I was also going through my own health challenges, not realizing that a lot of my health challenges could have been avoided. And most of them can be, because stress literally kills us. And I know we hear it from doctors, from, they know that. I'm going to agree that they know what they're talking about, obviously, right? Like if we can't avoid stress, and stress is everywhere, and it's how we're programmed through social media, the news, our family, like everything is based on a fear-based mentality, right? Because when you have fear,
isn't that the truth?
I know, and I'm going to get a little deep. When you have fear, you can control, right? So you can control someone's actions. And just like with my kids, if I want them to do something, I'm like, okay, well, you're not going to get this then, a reward. And maybe I shouldn't do that, now in hindsight.
I get it though. I get it.
But you know what I mean? Like that's how we're all raised. Like, don't cross the street, don't do this, like as a child, right? So you have this fear-based mentality growing up, and, going through your professional life, you're like, oh my gosh, if I mess up, am I going to lose my job? Am I going to, you always have these thoughts, and for me, I didn't know how to mitigate and transmute that. So instead, it pocketed in parts of my body. And we're going to talk about the chakras in a little bit, but it pocketed in parts of my body that deal with stability. So that's your bottom 3 chakras. That's your root chakra, your sacral, and your solar plexus, right? And for me, I started having issues like stomach issues, IBS. I had, I couldn't, like, if anything triggered me, I had to run to the bathroom. I know that's TMI, but a lot of us experience.
No, but I get it. I get it. And I love that you're talking about this, because our emotional state affects our physical state way more than Western medicine gives it credit.
Yes, 100%. And the other thing with Western medicine is that, is it really medicine? Does it, like, it just,
does it heal us?
Opinion, it doesn't heal us. It's a Band-Aid, right?
Exactly.
You basically get rid of the symptoms, but the underlying cause is still there, right? So like I said earlier, you can't avoid stress, but there are tools to navigate through. And at the time, it was burnout culture. Burnout culture was, all about, if you're stressed out, you're overbooked, that means you're successful, you're doing something right,
So overrated.
So overrated now in hindsight. And when my hair started falling out in chunks, right? Like my part is amazing now, but I had this huge, gorgeous. Thank you so much. But it's funny because at the time I didn't know what was going on. I was like, is it because I bleached my hair? And on the subway in Manhattan, I would look around and I saw other women having, I'm like, oh, maybe I'm aging, but I didn't realize that my stress was literally causing my hair to fall out, right? And then having all of these issues, went to the doctor. Doctors found a precancerous polyp in my colon, and it's primarily due to stress. So that's where basically doctor said that if I left that alone and didn't listen to my body, I probably wouldn't be alive today. So so that was eye-opening for me. And I realized that I had to do something. I didn't want to go on medication because, like we talked earlier, I wanted to go to the root cause, and I wanted to basically hold myself accountable and navigate through stress and fear and my own insecurities, right? And for me at the time, all I knew was fragrance. I knew that fragrance made me feel amazing, right? And I didn't have time to work out, but now I do, because now I'm a different person now. I hear you, sister. I hear you. Right, girl? I'm telling you. And so I had fragrance, and I had, I knew certain aromatherapeutic benefits of lavender and citrus and sandalwood. And I just had like these essential oils that I knew that if I felt something, I felt triggered, I would smell it and it would make me feel better. Right. And then I started working with crystals, because at the time, when you hit a low, you hit a low, and the people who suffer with mental health issues, they know what I'm talking about, depression, and you lose your self-belief, you lose your self-worth, because you go through this imposter syndrome. Like, how could I let this happen to me? And all the shame comes over you.
So much shame and guilt. So much shame and guilt. And I think especially for women too.
Yes, 100%. And you have to kind of go through that. So what was my kind of saving grace was working with crystals, because I need, and I'm holding a rose quartz now as we're speaking.
I have selenite right
here. And literally, and I just programmed myself that if I needed something to believe in, because I didn't believe in myself, I had my crystals with me, and some could call it a placebo effect. I call it an energetic transmission, right? That I get a little bit of an infusion and whatever works, and it worked. And before I knew it, I found my self-belief and my self-worth, that I realized that everything does happen for a reason. And I started investigating further on how I felt, leveling up like my mood and my self-belief. So one day I was meditating, because I incorporated meditation also into my daily practice to help me separate my ego from my just to get more in tune,
grounded.
And I said, and I'm like, what do I do? Because I don't want to go back to corporate. I don't want to go back to Manhattan. All that stress killed me. What do I do? And the message was, open your eyes. And I opened my eyes, and I had my Palo Santo, I had like my crystals, I had my essential oils, and I'm looking around, and this was back, I'm talking way back. And I'm like, oh my God. And they formed a triangle around me. And I'm like, oh my gosh. And then I realized I was going through my own, right? Yeah. I was going through my own ascension. I was literally, I felt like the saying like the phoenix rising from the ashes.
Yes.
I literally felt like a phoenix rising from the ashes. I was like, okay, wait a minute. I just burned what I thought of myself, the ego-based mentality of what success is and status symbol and all this shit that I, and I looked at that, right? And I'm like, I don't like this. This almost killed me, And then I took out the things about myself that I loved. I put it here. I replanted into new soil, metaphorically, right?
Yeah.
And then I was like, let me focus on this. And before I knew it, I left my corporate job and I just put my blood, sweat, tears, passion, intent, belief system, all of it into creating Ascension. And before I knew it, I told, this is also like reinvigorating my spiritual journey, like you suppress that in your life sometimes.
Yes. And I think we think it has to be either we're successful at this or we're spiritual. Either we have money or we're grounded and we're yogis and we're, happy mentally and physically, but it does not have to be either or.
No.
And it shouldn't be.
It shouldn't be. And that goes all the way back to the scarcity, fear-based mentality that we're brought up with through media, that you can't have it all. That, and the fact of the matter is you can. You absolutely can, because you have to reprogram that fear-based mentality of, like, for me, like, I'll give you an example. This is the best way to illustrate it, right? Like, I was raised to save for a rainy day. Make sure you have a little bit of money put away, make sure you invest, you have your 401k, you have all of this. And I did that. And thank God. So whoever's listening, start your 401k, because what I'm about to say is going to change your life. Right. So I would always think like, okay, all my money is going into this 401k, and I'm like, but why? I don't know how long I'm going to live. And like, the best investment for me right now is me. So 100%. I'm going to cash out of that 401k, even though I'm only going to get half of it. What can I do with half of that money? And I literally put all of that money into me, into starting my business, because I knew, like, I went through this for a reason. I have the business acumen for a reason. And I have this story for a reason. And I have to pay it forward, because I know I'm not the only one going through this. And I know people might need this, And this is when crystals, like the thought of crystals and all of that was still kind of like, oh, that's woo-woo. That's not, so I'm talking like 2017, 2018, right? And then 2018 was a pivotal year for me. And that's when I said, okay, I'm done holding on to this false sense of security. I'm going to let go of my job. I'm going to take that 401k, the little bit that I have, I'm going to invest it in me. I'm going to see how far it takes me. And Jaclyn, I'm so glad I did, because that's what created Ascension. That's what putting that energy out into the universe, now I get spiritual, literally brought in these angels in human form who were part of my network that I grew up in the beauty world, who stepped up and said, I believe in your mission. I'm going to help you. And that's how we got the bottle design. We got the trademark, we got the patents, we got everything. And it wasn't a walk in a park, right? But still
worth it.
It was like a Harvard MBA in like a good, 8 months, to get us rocking and rolling.
To me, what comes up is this beautiful co-creation between you, a willing human participant, and the divine.
Yes.
To create something that truly, I love this so much. I have prosperity and I have courage, and I use them every day. And there's such, like you said, the power of scent and what happens to us spiritually and mentally. So before I ever received your perfumes, I'm such a crystal junkie too. I've got them peppered in my bookcases and around my house. They're everywhere. But I'm also a scent junkie too. So I love essential oils. I started using lavender when I was 12. Yeah. And so to have these, I would say your fragrances are very elevated in that they're so gorgeous. There's so many notes. It's not as like a simple lavender or a lemon or a eucalyptus, though I love those. These feel like super high-end fragrances, like your Chanel, like your Dolce & Gabbana, but they're clean.
Yes.
Which I am, especially being pregnant, I am so careful about what I put on and in my body. But even before I was pregnant, I was so particular about everything. I mean, clean makeup too.
Yeah.
So everything that you were talking about is so up my alley, and I'm sure up the alley of many listeners that are tuning in. So let me ask you this. Why did you choose clean? And is creating clean fragrance a lot harder than traditional fragrance?
That's such a great question. And so for me, holistically, working in clean beauty for a majority of my career, I see what goes into products, right? And I also see what happens to the products, like where they end up. And
it is so scary. And I don't mean to interrupt you,
scary.
but I just had a thought. I read this the other day, and it was someone in the wellness world equating the warnings that we see on secondhand smoke and cigarette labels now being compared to added fragrances in products. Like they are that harmful. I don't want to scare people, but
no, but
that is, it's really, really bad.
And that's the thing, like, that's one thing I want to clarify to everyone who's listening. At the end of the day, it's the dose that makes the poison, right? So if you think about it this way, like no one other than drowning, no one's ever died going into a chlorinated pool, you know, because our skin has all those barriers that actually protect us. And the level of chlorine is at a safe level. But if you went in a full throttle into a batch of chlorine, you would burn and die. Right. So just want to give that analysis out there so that people understand that if any fragrance that's created in the marketplace, they do go by the safe levels. Some brands go to the extremes like I do because of my story, and other brands stay within the safe confines because it's based on, you know, the olfactive payoff, because when you stay within the safe confines, which is that's what's regulated by IFRA. I know there's a new name. I'm completely blanking on it right now, but it's the International Regulatory Council that says like what is safe and what isn't safe for fragrance, right? And at what dose, right? And what level. So I wanted to take the guesswork out of it, right? Similarly, like akin to going to a Whole Foods. I go to a Whole Foods knowing that everything there is safe. It's harvested responsibly. I don't have to think about it. I know that, you know, I could trust a Whole Foods, right?
It's worth it.
It's worth it. And I will pay more money for it because it's worth it, because it's the right ingredients, it's the right harvesting. And that's what I wanted to do within a fragrance. Like for me, where I see clean fragrance, the whole clean beauty category going, is that it's just going to be, that's just the even playing field of like, okay, clean means you don't test on animals, you use vegan ingredients, you look at sustainable practices. Because also the other thing that doesn't sit well with me is that if you focus on 100% natural, right? And a lot of people don't talk about this. So you focus on 100% natural, that doesn't mean that it's 100% clean. So if you look at poison ivy, right, that's 100%
that's natural. 100% natural,
right? Yeah. But if you put that on your body, that's not a good idea.
No.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, there's a huge difference between clean and natural. And I think that is such a great point to bring up.
Exactly. And there's also allergens that come with 100% natural. So one thing for your listeners to know, that if a brand is claiming that they are hyperallergenic, that means they're not using naturals, right? Because hyperallergenic means that there are allergens or there are sans allergens or no allergens or limited allergens. But how could you limit the allergens on a product that is 100% natural? It naturally has, right? No. So for me, it's a nice balance. Everything in life is balance, going back to that energetic spiritual realm, the yin and the yang, right? The balance, right? And depleting the earth of its natural resources also doesn't sit well with me because, you know, I'm sure you juice, right? I think I saw out of your stories, you juicing, right?
Yes, for sure.
So girl, I know, but like, think about it. How much spinach, how much kale do you have to put into a juicer to just get a cup of juice, right?
Oh, so much.
Right. Now think about woods, sandalwoods, think about any kind of trees, think about the things that we need, right? Like the more trees we have, the more we survive, because trees are, you know, they're the lungs of the world, right? So if we're cutting down trees for fragrance, how many trees do you have to cut down to get one bottle of fragrance?
You are speaking my language. I just want to be over here like, hallelujah.
Right?
Yes.
So fragrance houses that we work with. So this isn't like just buying, like to your point, the elevated aspect of the fragrance. It's not just going on Amazon and buying essential oils and then like mixing it in your thing. Like that's fine and good, but this is not what I want to do. There's a whole opportunity to level up and make this high vibrational beauty product in the luxury space, right? And open this up for everyone to see that it's okay. There are beauty practices within perfumery that use green chemistry, meaning like synthetic fragrances that are made in the lab. It doesn't mean that they're bad for you because they're actually better for you. You're not depleting the environment. You could control the toxicity level. You can control the olfactive payoff. And it's a win-win. And then you can also control the allergens in them, you know? So that's basically what we sought out to do, like, so that whoever buys from my collection or joins my collective, they know that, okay, these fragrances, I don't even have to think about them. I know that they're clean. I know that they're responsibly harvested. I know that they're sustainably harvested. I know they're not depleting the environment of its natural resources. And also one thing about me is that I've learned how to work with perfumers to create linear fragrances, meaning a lot of people who smell fragrance, they get a headache, right? So a lot of people are like, I don't really wear fragrances because I get the headaches. And that's usually the ingredients that go in.
Absolutely.
And if you look at a fragrance, like if you put it on like a bar graph, a regular designer fragrance, right? Let's say Chanel number 5, it would be like, all over the place because of all the movement, you know? And if you have less movement, but it moves in the back and you don't really notice it, the line goes straight. So what you smell on the top is what you smell on the dry down, meaning like when the fragrance dries off. Yeah. And that mitigates headaches because there's less for your body to take in. Just like if you smell too many fragrances out, you go to, Saks and you smell all those things and they put the, the beans.
It's too much.
And the beans don't help. So anyway, so that's why. And I think I answered your question, but yes, it's way harder to create a clean fragrance because the palette goes from 1 million ingredients to maybe 100. So you have to get super creative. Well, and that's what we achieved.
Oh, it's so what you achieved. And I think what has stood out to me so much, several things. So I love that you brought up frequency and vibration because I feel like this is the future. And I've talked about it on this podcast so much. I feel like the future of healing is frequency healing. 100%. I don't know that we have all of the science there yet, but I know that I just bought a frequency bed that's supposed to be shipping next month. And I'm super pumped about it.
I need one of those.
I'll send you the link. The link. But what stands out to me is everything about your product carries a frequency. The box is beautiful. The bottle is beautiful. The crystal is beautiful. The scent is beautiful. The cards that come with it and the affirmations and the intentions are beautiful. And what I also find to be a really big point of differentiation is how long the fragrance lasts. Because as somebody who loves essential oils and has for most of my life, I mean, my mom introduced me to essential oils when I was like 12. So for most of my life, I have been experimenting. The thing about essential oils is they smell great. They don't last though. Like you put them on and it lasts a few minutes and then it's gone, maybe a couple of hours. I have sprayed your fragrances on my clothing and I'll go to wear it a couple days later and it's still there. And I'm like, oh, this is just heaven.
Yes. Can I just jump in? Like,
yes, of course.
That's another thing, like working in clean beauty is that a lot of the feedback has always been, well, these fragrances don't last. They're so clean,
and they don't,
this and that.
They don't. And I've had multiples from different companies that I've tried out because I'm such a clean beauty junkie and none of them last more than like 20 minutes.
And that's all fine and good because maybe sometimes it's because you become anosmic, like you get so used to it, you don't smell it or you can't smell musks naturally, right? But for what I wanted to accomplish, and this is why I chose the partner that I chose with, I work with Mon, they're amazing. The perfumers there just know, like when I come in and I say, okay, we're going to figure, and they looked at me as I was crazy, as a lot of people do when we start working together, but then they realize I'm onto something, right?
You're just ahead of you're ahead of the game.
Oh, thanks, girl. So I literally was just like, what does love smell like? But I want it to last. I don't want it to be like a twin flame journey that's like a blip in your life. I want it to be like something that lasts, because you are your best investment. And when you fall in love with yourself, that is the love and that I want to capture. But also working, mind you, they work with a tiny palette of ingredients, but everything is chemistry. So working with the ingredients that work and bond off of one another, that then bonded to your skin can last. And also it's the quality of the ingredients and the level of fragrance concentration also, because fragrance literally is alcohol, water, and fragrance, right? That's all that's in fragrance, you know? And like in parfum, but it's that concentration of the ingredients, the percentage, and a lot of clean fragrance brands don't put it at the maximum level for whatever reason, you know, and they have
it's like a mist instead of a parfum.
Exactly. And also like the price dictates that too, you know, so like my fragrances are premium for a reason, because just like we said earlier, you go to Whole Foods because you expect good food to put on the table and you're going to pay a little bit more. Same thing with Ascension. You're going to pay a little bit more than the competition, but you're going to get an ethically sourced crystal and you're going to get a parfum fragrance that is going to last and won't give you a headache, is good for you in the environment, helps you set your intentions, feel good emotions. It's literally like an investment in yourself.
Oh, you know? It's 100%. And honestly, I mean, I know it's a premium product, but I don't feel like price wise it's ridiculous in any way, shape, or form. I've bought Chanel before and Dolce and Gabbana and all the nice stuff, and then been like, what am I actually putting on my skin?
Exactly.
So to be able to buy your product, which I think is $100, is that right?
It's 98. And I felt like, being that I wanted to make it accessible to everyone, because that's the other thing, like wellness really isn't, you know, accessible to everyone. Oh my
gosh, right?
And I wanted it to be under $100 so that anyone, even if it's a teenager, could like save up their money, their babysitting or their TikTok money, whatever it is that they're doing, right? And invest in themselves, because it's so funny, like the whole thing about like self-discovery and self-belief, like we all think we want to do certain things, but when we think about it, and I've seen memes on this before, is that you don't think twice about dropping like $6 on your coffee, but if you add that all up during the week, what does that come to? And it's over $100 when it comes to a month. But when you invest in yourself, in books, in holistic products like Ascension that could help elevate your mind, you're like, oh, I don't know about that, you know?
I mean, it's like, 100%. 100%. And I, in 2020, was diagnosed with Hashimoto's thyroiditis. So I had my own like health scare, then wellness journey. And I thought, I want to go into remission in a holistic, nutrient-based way, in as much as I possibly can. And that was the turning point for me, where I realized I can buy 18 sweaters, you know, from whatever fast fashion brand for $200 or $300, or I can get acupuncture, I can get herbs, I can invest in clean beauty, I can invest in clean scent. And for me, one of the things that I have loved, pregnancy is hard. You know this, you've been through it twice.
I don't know how I did that twice, but yeah.
It is so hard. I cannot wait to meet this baby, because I know it's going to be worth it, but it is so hard. But one of the things that has taught me is the importance of a ritual. Taking time for myself every single day to say, hey, I'm going to put on prosperity, and I'm going to say my intention, and I'm going to stand here for 10 seconds and just take it in. And then with your perfume too, because it does last, I can like go back and smell it. Oh, one more thing I wanted to add was, because it's concentrated, you don't need a lot. So this goes, $98 goes a long, long way. But that ritual, that reminder, especially as women, and this podcast has been called Self-Discovery for the last 2 seasons, but in season 3, I'm transitioning it to self-worth. So it's going to be self-worth with Jaclyn Steele, because I thought, if I'm going to hang my hat on anything in this world. And what I want my legacy to be is self-worth.
Yes.
We as women, we are so, I love this about us. We're so giving, we're so loving, we're so overt. But then when it comes to understanding who we are and our own value, there is like this total blind spot in so many of us, and myself included. I feel like I've done a lot of healing in that area, but ritual and investing in ourselves, whether that be nutrition or fragrance or a bath with magnesium salt, you know, whatever it is, we need to understand that we are worth that investment day in and day out, not once a week, not once a month, not once a year, every single day, even if it's 15 seconds of spraying fragrance.
Girl, preach. And you know this, and I'm just gonna, I like to say things because sometimes I need to hear them. So I'm gonna say this.
Me too.
Dedicated to you, dedicated to me, dedicated to every woman that's listening this. And I love the evolution of your podcast name, because that is so indicative of your journey too, right? Because you were working through your discovery, and now you're realizing your worth, and now you're going to own that, you know? And this is a friendly reminder to me and everyone that, not to sound sexist, but women really are the energy that we have within us. We are the most powerful, magnetic gender that's out there. Because we are intuitive, we are, and we're taught to shut that down. We're taught not to cry. We're taught not to stick up for ourselves because it's not ladylike and someone's not going to like you.
Oh
right?
My gosh, yeah.
We're taught to know our place. We're taught like, oh, nice girls don't do that, right? Growing up, whatever it may be, you know. And this is an invitation for all of us to reclaim our power, to reclaim that you follow your intuition. Because how many times, tell me if I'm wrong, how many times when you do something that's not based on your intuition, later on you're like, I knew it, right? I knew it, right?
Yes.
And even, yes. I just had a call before, and the gentleman on the phone was telling me about all this data. And I'm like, I don't care about your data. What does your gut say? You know? And that's what, I mean, that's how Steve Jobs built his empire with Apple, is through his gut, you know? And we have to go back to this intuition, this intuitive vibrational being that we are as individuals. Humans are made to emit and transmit energy and work within an energetic realm. And I'm quoting Dr. Joe Dispenza, who I
love him too. Yeah.
He's amazing. And I reread all of his books, but literally, like, for us to manifest and for us to attract and for us to be in that spiritual realm, we have to be magnetic. And our magnetism, we have to we have to transmute those low energetic, the jealousy, the fear, the insecurity, all of that, and transmute that into love, joy, courage, self-belief,
high vibrational emotion.
Exactly. So that we then create this, and there are many ways to do it, to create this magnetic field around us, that what we think then happens, right? And it does happen.
And it's so true.
You're proof of it.
It's so true. And it's so simple, but we overcomplicate it. Have you read Conversations with God by Neil Donald Walsh?
That's on my list. That's next up. I need to read it.
So good.
Yes.
It's so good. I remember when I read it like, oh my gosh, it's been like 7 years, but I would wake up every morning and I couldn't wait to open it. It was that powerful for me. But one of the biggest takeaways I have from that is he said, every single emotion is either based in love or fear. You can trace anything back to love or fear. And so one mantra that I have that I repeat often is choose the loving thought. Like, if I am in a state of anxiety, just choose the loving thought. What is the next best thing I can do? What is the most loving thing I can inject into the next moment? And let it be simple. And that transmutes so quickly. And I find that when I'm in like a high vibrational energetic state, I attract so much attention, and it's not based on looks. It's not based on anything material. It's based solely on the energy that I am emitting. It is real and it is palpable, and it's available to all of us. It's not the chosen few. It's available to all of us.
And we as females have that naturally, you know, like a lot of men are taught, and this is why I'm being a more woke mom to my boys, to teach them how to tap into their energy and work with their energy and not be afraid to cry. And like men are taught not to cry because that's feminine. What are you, a girl? Like, you know, yeah, tap into that. We all have divine masculine, divine feminine qualities, right?
And we need that balance.
And we need the balance. My point, exactly. Like, you know, there's certain, it's what you need and what your body needs, and working with your energy to know then what to channel through and being that in tune, you know. And a lot of things that I like to practice is like when I start feeling, and I know that feeling so well, and I'm sure many feel this feeling, but that pit in your stomach where you start feeling fear, right? And then you start thinking like, what am I doing? Like I'm like, and you start spirals, and you start rethinking everything in your mind, like all the decisions you've made, even back into like 5th grade, you know, you start going down that rabbit hole, right? And you're like, oh, I'm such an idiot. I should have done that. Like, and we beat ourselves up. And this is where we have to give ourselves permission to say, no, we're not doing that today. We're not doing that anymore. And there's amazing power in our breath. Like our breath heals us. Prana. And yes, life. Prana. Yeah. And literally just taking a minute, and I do this often. Because I have moments where I spiral, like it's anyone else, but yeah, at least now you have tools, right? To transmute that energy. Then I take 3 centering breaths, and each breath is longer than the last. And sometimes I breathe on top of that, right? And I kind of do a scan of my chakras to see which ones need a little bit of love and attention. And usually 9 times out of 10, where we pocket all of our stress is our solar plexus, which is right behind our navel, right? And I focus on that, and I take those deep breaths, and I just let that light, that yellow light that represents your solar plexus, just kind of come through, and just I build this orb around me, and I start to creatively visualize and remind myself of how far I've come, because we don't ever take the time to say, girl, I'm proud of you, you know?
Right. And it's like, so powerful.
It's so powerful. And that literally is your self-worth. Get your self-identity right there. And when you start feeling imposter syndrome, and I feel it on the regular because I'm an entrepreneur and I'm literally right. And I'm living on the edge. I'm like skydiving still. Like I haven't hit the ground yet. So it's good, you know? Yeah. But when I'm nervous, I'm like, is my parachute gonna, you know, eject? Am I gonna break my legs? And, you know, tying into any kind of, you know, analogy that you want. But I just remind myself, like creatively visualize that where I am now, I once manifested, right? Like 100%. I once wanted my own business. I wanted to have freedom. I got a tattoo, angel wings. That was my freedom, to remind me of it. And that was years ago when I was going through my journey, my wellness journey, right? And now when I think about where I want to go and thinking like, are you crazy? Like, you know, and I have to remind myself that I did that. I'm proud of you. And I did not like come this far to get this far, you know, like that saying. Yes. And then I start visualizing what it is that I desire, because now I've elevated my thought process, reminded myself of my power, right? And I do that with sense. So at that moment, to activate the solar plexus, I work with courage, and I recite the mantra of, on the other side of fear is my destiny. On the other side of fear is my destiny, right? And it's not about now feeling it. It's about feeling it and putting that into your engine and fueling that engine so that you can then freaking fly beyond the cosmos.
Well, I love that, because it takes all the fear out of it. You go, okay, I'm feeling fear. Now it's time to feel it and then transmute it, which I think is also really powerful about your fragrance line too, is that each fragrance, instead of being, you know, some like ethereal name, which I love, like, don't get me wrong, I'm all into woo-woo, but all of your fragrances are a feeling. So courage, love, prosperity. I think it's so important to note that it is so powerful to go, what do I want to feel today? Or what am I feeling in this moment that I want to transmute? And then using a tool like fragrance, like meditation, to then transmute it and actively participate in our lives rather than pushing those negative emotions out of the way, which is, I think, primarily what we've been taught to do.
Yeah. And it's a lot of it is like, I know for me, like if I felt bad, I would do retail therapy, and then I would have crazy right? And then I would have these crazy credit card bills and have all this debt that I didn't know what to do with, you know, but I felt good for a second. That was a Band-Aid, you know, or like Xanny it up, you know, with Xanax, like to like get rid of the stress, and but I still felt it after, you know, and then I had all the side effects. It's all a Band-Aid. So here it's like, that's, and I love that you noticed that, because everything that went into this brand was with so much love.
So intentional.
Right?
Yeah. It's so intentional.
I wanted to keep it so simple so that what you get, you know what you're getting, you know, like, like, what do I need today? And that's how I go by every morning. I'm like, okay, I scan my line. What do I need today? I think I need to love myself a little bit. So I grab my Ascent to Love and I do my little love ritual. And it's simple as like just spraying your fragrance, feeling what it feels like to be loved, like genuinely loved unconditionally, whatever that means for you. And then remembering that feeling and knowing that you are loved, you know, and you might not be in a relationship or have a supporting, you know, familiar unit, but you're loved by the energetic realm. Like you were brought here for a reason, and you do have your guides, you know, if we want to get metaphysical.
We've got so much help.
Yeah. So much help.
And so much help.
And if people are doubting that, if you're seeing repeating numbers, that's your soul tribe
100%
trying to communicate with you.
Yeah. Side note, I started doing, getting into the Akashic records this year. And then I started doing Akashic readings on myself. And then I started doing Akashic readings on my friends. And then I started opening it up to the public. And so just what you said about like, we have so much divine help. It's incredible. Yeah. And I am in the throes of nesting. You know, I'm doing a month. This podcast will come out around the time this baby is born. But I am, you know, hanging artwork and cleaning and organizing and all of these things. And I was like, I started thinking about how I want people to feel when they walk into my home. I have a background in branding. And so to me, branding is all about the feeling you elicit. It's not just a look. It's not just a logo, etc. And I was like, how do I want my home to be branded? Whether or not that's neurotic, I don't know. I'm owning it.
I love it though. I'm with you.
Yeah. And so I was like, there is this quote by Marianne Williamson. And the beginning of it is, we are powerful beyond measure. Yeah. And the essence of the quote, it's kind of long, is that we're not afraid of our own greatness. I'm sorry, we're not afraid of not being great. We're actually afraid of our own greatness. And we are so powerful beyond measure. And when we own that power, we give others permission to do the same. And so I made it into this giant graphic, and it's the first thing that you see when you walk in. Ooh, and then I have I have this like mister too, so that I can incorporate scent when people walk into my house too, because I feel like, again, we are so powerful. And especially as women, I know men do this, but we look outside of ourselves for comfort. Maybe it's retail therapy, maybe it's food, maybe it's drugs, maybe it's another person, maybe it's a romantic relationship. Those things in and of themselves are not necessarily bad. But if those are our crutch and we are negating the power that we have to be our own source of comfort, to be our own source of peace, to be our own source of self-worth, we're always going to be coming up short. We're always going to feel like we're in the negative or that our tank is not full. And it doesn't have to be that way.
No, and that's how addictions form. We get addicted to it. We get addicted to the high. And then when that high drops, because we don't have that foundation that you just mentioned of building ourselves up to that level without anything else influencing us, you know, and we're addicted. We're an addictive society. We chase money, we chase success, whatever that may be. But as we started this conversation, it's all within us, right? It's in our mentality. And if we evict the fear-based mentality and focus more on love and feeling that you're worthy, I think that's where it starts, that you're worthy of love, you're worthy of abundance, you're worthy of success. You no longer have to chase it, because then you attract it. You know?
Oh, amen. Which perfectly leads into my next question for you. So the theme of the podcast this month, for the month of February, is self-worth. And I am saying within that theme, it's owning our worth. That's like my theme for the whole year.
Yeah.
What does that mean to you? And how do you think scent can accentuate our self-worth? And do you have any examples of this from your life?
Yes. So I think owning your worth is holding yourself accountable, you know? That if you say you're going to do something, right? Like you say you're going to vision board, if you say you're going to, you know, start your wellness journey, or you're focusing on your self-love, it all sounds great, but are you really, you know, and what does that look like for you? Because my version of love for myself might be different than yours, you know? And it's like, okay, so for example, for me, embarking on my self-love journey was filling my own tank and not looking and stop and not being thirsty for others' validation, you know? So, and for me, that was like, I need to be physical and like physically active because I have a lot of energy. So I was like, okay, so every day I'm going to go to the gym. And if I can't go every day, I'm going to go 5 out of the 7 days. You know, something might come up with my kids and I can't go. But if I don't go to the gym, I need to do something to get my energy up, in terms of like, if I feel down, I got to do something up, and I have to listen to my body. And there are days that things get in the way and I completely forget. But it's holding yourself accountable, saying, okay, hold up. What did I say I was going to do that I know that makes me feel good, right? I didn't do it. So now, instead of saying, oh, you're worthless, you're an ass, whatever, right? Saying, okay, that's fine. You know, I forgive you. Now, what can we do instead? You know, and for me, it's like taking a minute to breathe, or working, I've started doing the 5 Tibetan rites. I don't know if you've done them yet, but right?
No, I haven't, but that sounds like the next thing I'm going to dive into.
Yes. After you have your baby, I wouldn't recommend with your baby, but you could. There are these simple 5 yoga movements that you do 21 times. And I started doing them with a fellow founder friend of mine, that we hold ourselves accountable. And that's another thing that you can do, is find someone who's on a similar journey as you. And if you can't hold yourself accountable, have them, kind of like in AA when they have your sponsor, find like a sponsor that's your friend that will hold you accountable, to say, did you do your rights today? Or someone that you could basically communicate with. If you need to vent, get it out, but then find a solution so you don't fester. So we've been doing these rites, and for me, it's been life-changing, because it basically shocks all of your chakras into alignment, and you will feel right away which chakra is out of alignment, based on, like, you'll either get nauseous, you'll get migraines, and it goes away once you clear out the energy. So,
and these are called the Tibetan what?
The 5 Tibetan rites.
The 5 Tibetan rites.
Yes, they have been life-changing for me. And also, if you suffer from depression, it's a very quick way to elevate get rid of that heaviness, and to elevate your frequency, right? You'll feel it instantaneously. And some people give up. That's the other thing, holding yourself accountable, right? Like, if you say you're going to do the rights, do the rights. And if they're hard to do, then okay, don't do all 11 or 21, repetitions. Do 10 at first, or do 5 at first.
Build up, and at least start. Up.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So that's another good point. It's like holding yourself accountable to just start. If you want to start that business, start by, brainstorming a little bit each day. Let it be your side hustle until it can be your front hustle. And then, there's so many things that.
I feel like we could talk for like 18 hours. So we might just have to do a part 2 or something.
I would love that.
I love what you're saying about self-worth, because I think, and this is something that I've talked about a lot on this podcast too, is personal responsibility. Yeah. Our self-worth cannot be rooted in anyone but ourselves. And if we're not doing the work, the first step is taking ownership of it and saying, okay, I'm not going to beat myself up. I'm not going to shame myself or guilt myself, but I am going to start doing the moves, or I'm going to start doing the breathing, or I'm going to start the business plan, and I'm actually going to do it.
Yeah.
So as we're wrapping up, I have just a couple more questions for you. This one, I'm such a clean beauty junkie. So this is just out of curiosity for me, because you have such beautiful glowing skin. Are there any clean beauty products that you are like, this is a holy grail, this is a standout, this is amazing, I highly recommend it?
Yes, actually, it's my founder friend's line. It's called Lolly Beauty, and it's
I have to check it out.
Yeah,
yes,
it is incredible.
Oh my gosh. Well, if you want to send me her contact information, because
I will.
I would love to have her on the podcast too.
She's incredible. She's just like us. And she started this line to clean up beauty. And her packaging is like mushroom based packaging. So it's all like,
oh my gosh.
Food. It's so good. And everything is high vibrational. And I love her plum elixir. I highly recommend that. It's just so good. Like I got a tattoo last month, like another tattoo like on my side, and she told me to put it on it, and literally I did, and it healed so beautifully. So I use that elixir like after I wash, and I use glycolic acid, like because that's just what I just staple for girls my age. But after that, I put on the plum elixir like all over my body, and it just makes my skin just like I could see that it sucks it up. And here I'm in New Jersey, so it's freezing here. It's 11 degrees outside. So I know, like, using that product literally creates a moisture barrier so that my skin feels plump and hydrated. So I highly recommend it. You can use it in your hair. You can do it all over your body. So
oh my gosh, they're multi-purpose.
Yes, get that for yourself too, because when you have your baby, you're going to need that to self-love it up. You're going to really need it, and it smells amazing. So highly recommend it.
Oh, I love that. I'm such a beauty junkie. And so I love asking my guests what their like holy grail product is. Okay. Then what's next for Ascension? What do you want to promote? Nothing that you don't have to say anything, like any secret stuff, but what do you want to promote right now? What are you excited about next?
So right now, I would say I have two things. So the first thing I would say is we're going into the month, or we're in the month when this airs, of the love Valentines, all that stuff. And for some people, like that is triggering, and a good way to mitigate that, and it should be every month, is just focusing on your self-love. And if you don't know how to start, I would just say, grab yourself an Ascent to Love. This is my most popular fragrance, and for good reason, because it smells amazing, and it really works in terms of it's made with aphrodisiac ingredients that you fall in love with yourself. Yes. And be careful, this might cause another population burst, but and the ritual helps you fall in love with yourself. And the other thing I'm excited is that I'm manifesting for this year, like one of my 2022 intentions. It takes me a long time to create a fragrance, as you can tell with this. Like, I'm not a fast fragrance.
So much that goes into it.
Yeah. It took a good 2 years to get these to market, for good reason, because things have to just be right. And I'm excited because I'm manifesting that we're going to launch our 6th fragrance this year. And it's so good. I've never smelled anything like it. And it's just going to be so next level.
I can't wait.
Me too. It's like everyone who smells it is like,
gotta have
this
it.
Is like the next, it's going to be the next Sental, 33, or the next Francois, Francis Kouchoukan fragrance. I messed up his name, but on a clean level, it's so good. And I'm just putting that out there. So that's in the works. So we're very excited.
I'm so excited for you. And let me know when it comes out, and I will of course help support you and share on social media and all of that stuff.
Love you. Absolutely. You're going to love it, girl.
I have loved everything that you have put out. So I have no doubt. Okay, so last question for you is where can people go to order your incredible next level perfumes? And where
They
can
can
people
go.
find you online?
Okay, so they can go on ascensionbeautyco.com, and it's spelled with a T. So ASCENTION beautyco.com. And actually we're having a lot of fun on TikTok. Like our community has exploded to over like we're close to 130,000 followers, which is
Oh my
crazy.
gosh, that's
I know.
amazing.
It's amazing. But these are the conversations we're having, and we're having a lot of fun, and it's not so serious. It's just,
Mhm.
it's
Not like
holding ourselves.
curated Instagram.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it's not curated at all. It's just me real, like actually walking in the woods and having moments and thoughts and,
Mm,
channeling messages and navigating through like how to get your energy right with scent. And it's just a lot of fun. So if you're on TikTok, join us there. And of course, Instagram, find us there
yeah.
too. But TikTok's where it's at. Like,
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and I
right.
will be sure to link all of those things in the show notes so people can easily access and click and follow.
Amazing. Thank you, my love.
Oh, anything else that you want to add before we sign off?
I just wanted to say thank you. Like, I feel so blessed to be here. I feel so privileged to be here, and just honored. And I hope that the right people hear this message from our
Mm,
conversation, because
mhm,
sometimes you just need to hear someone else go through it and realize you're not alone, because we really
mm,
aren't.
mm. Yes. And I'm so honored to have you. Thank you so much, Greta.
Thank you. Thank you, Jaclyn.